Well, hello there, weary traveler. Welcome to the inn. Sit, rest your feet. Why, it's a long journey on the road to Tarvalon. Have a cup of tea, or maybe a frothy ale. The light. Why, you're just in time for the entertainment. Here are your hosts, Tracy and Amber.
The children have authority wherever the light is, witch, and where the light is not, we bring it.
That was good.
I loved that.
That was good.
Thanks, Dane Bornhold. Hello, and welcome back. I'm here with my friend Amber.
And I'm here with my friend Tracy.
And this is The Road to Tarvalon, a Wheel of Time podcast.
Today we are diving into another Westlands 101 episode, and as with all of our 101 episodes, the first half will be spoiler-free for new readers, and then after the break we get into all the nitty-gritty spoiler stuff.
Our topic today was inspired by my dear friend Tim, who has just started reading through this series for the first time. He's been sending me a flurry of text messages as he races through the books with his ideas and theories, and I have just loved it. But there was one in particular where I was just like, yes, that needs to be a topic for us. And the message was this: boy, them Whitecloaks, eh? Today's 101 is dedicated to the Children of the Light, converting to combat. Amber, I thought that was such a clever subtitle for this topic. And Tim, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And we're
Awesome.
really excited to have someone who is early on in the books, because I think for me and Tracy, that's really hard to put, you know, your first read goggles back on after you finish everything. But do you want to tell us a little bit about where you're at and what your first impressions of the Children of the Light were?
Well, so I just finished, a couple of days ago, I just finished The Dragon Reborn. I have been racing through these books. It's crazy how fast I've been getting through them.
I was shocked.
I was
You were
shocked.
yeah.
I thought you were still finishing Eye of the World.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that text that I sent you, Tracy, kind of wraps it up for me. Like, the parallels between some historical groups are crazy, and it's really interesting how they're trying to, from what I understand thus far, they're trying to uphold what they think is right. And basically, if you don't agree lockstep with them, then you are a dark friend.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. I think that's about it. I remember when I first started, it was when they're introduced, I'm like, what the hell is their problem? Like, what's your deal?
Yeah.
Chill. They have no
I would
chill.
definitely be a dark friend.
Yeah, right? So,
Yeah.
Tracy, did you want to start us off with we're just kind
Like
of
who the
summing up
Children of the Light
here.
are?
Yeah.
Sure. They are a self-appointed and independent military organization who have made it their responsibility to root out dark friends, evil, and corruption. And these ideas are defined by the Whitecloaks themselves. The Wiki Wheel of Time page says their zeal in this endeavor borders on the insane and makes them dangerous opponents. They see their cause as the only true and pure cause in the Westlands. So that's like the start of it.
Basically what Tim just said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully not too redundant.
I feel like fanatical zealot is probably a good descriptor.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Definitely. There's behavior that definitely qualifies that ideology, maybe?
Yeah.
Fanatic zealot. Like, I feel like that comes across frequently with them. And for that, they are not an exceptionally popular group among the people of the Westlands. In fact, most people appear to be mistrustful of their actions, and they are frequently referred to as Whitecloaks because of their bright white cloaks that they wear as part of their uniform. Children of the Light would more than likely be insulted to be called a Whitecloak to his face. And I think along with...
I'm just laughing
You're
because throughout the
laughing.
document, I'm like, I'm just going to call them Whitecloaks.
I know, me too. And then part of me was like, wait, is that disrespectful to them? And then I was like, doesn't matter. I hate them. So Whitecloaks it is. They're awful. Don't like them. So yeah, I did the same thing. And then I think you found like this information on their founder too, right?
Yeah, so this guy, Lothair, I don't know how you want to say it. I say Lothair because I'll explain later on, but Mantalar, he was, he wasn't really the super evil villain type character, especially when you compare him with other characters that we read later, throughout the series. And his story starts out during the 100 Years' War, and that was when all of the drama was going down with Arthur Hawkwing and a lot of border disputes and civil wars. And this guy, Lothair, basically is just like, this isn't right. And he goes ahead and he decides he's going to write this book called The Way of the Light, stressing this importance of a simple living. And his books get really popular because people are living in this really shit time in history, and they're kind of like gravitating towards something new. And because of all these wars and battles, Lothar's followers had learned they need to protect themselves. So they start carrying swords and training and kicking ass to any dark friends that they can find. So even though...
I'm sorry. I was just... So what that actually made me think about this part right here, especially since this is like during or like it's close to the breaking, right? That this book is written. Is that accurate? Or is it shortly after?
It was after because their whole...
during the 100 Years' War. Okay. I got confused timeline. I was just thinking that like...
Yeah, because the breaking had already happened, and they're like, the breaking happened because of all you channelers.
Yeah. Okay. Because I was thinking like if it was close to the time period of the breaking, people in the Age of Legends didn't really know how to fight each other because like war and stuff like that wasn't really a thing. They didn't go in that direction to resolve disputes and stuff. And I was like, oh, that would totally make sense that they would need to learn how to like defend themselves in a world where they've never had to do that before. But I was in the wrong.
Well, yeah, like
I was in the wrong time location. Sorry.
These people are just surrounded. This is a giant civil war. They're surrounded by fighting in every corner. So these followers of Lothair were like, well, we better learn how to carry a sword now because we've got this, wacky religion coming up and people might not always take kindly to it. And that was kind of, the next part is because this book that he wrote, it was really popular, but it was also super controversial. So he believed that touching Saidin or Saidar was sacrilegious. So that kind of, instead of just leaving it at that and being like, you're sinners, he took it a step further and was like, not only are you sinners, but you're dark friends. So, he had this theory that all of this civil war was creating a power vacuum, and then all of the dark friends were kind of coming in and using it to their advantage, which to me, it's not a huge leap because throughout the series, there are moments where you're like, okay. So he's not...
There are dark friends everywhere. Like that feels like...
There really are.
This is just... This is just even in the very beginning of Eye of the World. It's like, the thing that everyone's afraid of.
And with reason. With reason. Yeah.
But a lot of readers think that his character was influenced by Martin Luther. And that's why I keep saying Luther, because Martin Luther. But the priest who started this Protestant Reformation. And so the name is very similar. You've got like the L and the M switched. There's this big similarity with the whole like book printing thing. So people at the time of the Reformation were annoyed because the church was taking payments like in return for wiping people's sins away. So if you are some big rich asshole, you could be like, I've done all the sinning and I can do whatever I want, and then just head down to the church and pay your sins away. Which the common people, they're like, is that really fair?
That's
like,
gross.
I don't think so. Yeah.
It's gross.
Yeah. So Martin Luther was like, hey, people, that's classist. The Bible says this. And then he goes along and starts printing tons and tons of Bibles, but in a language that the common people could actually understand. Because at the time, another classist thing is they were only printed in Latin. So if you weren't educated, you couldn't read the Bible along with everyone else. So there are these similarities with Lothar and his Way of the Light book that he wrote.
I agree.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed that that parallel that you found. I thought that was really illuminating.
Thanks. And this is another thing too. Like, I didn't come up with this on my own because, like, right there in the wiki, it's like, some people believe that this character was influenced by Martin Luther. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
But I'm also like living in an area where a lot of shit went down because of the Reformation. Like, I'm living where pretty much the peasant wars started. So, like, I think this is a cool little bit of history.
It is cool.
I like that we pull in history as often as we do, considering how I feel about it. And really just also how Robert Jordan felt about it. Like, he was a history enthusiast, and you can see it in his writing.
Oh,
and it's
yes.
really varied. And you can absolutely tell where some of his favorite areas of history are, but it's still just, it's varied. It's kind of all over the place, and I appreciate it. Anyway, so the Way of the Light then and now, I think, is the next direction that we want to go. I like that we start out with the setting as being the Fortress of the Light because it is such an iconic building for the children and as their seat of power.
It really puts them in this like royalty-like situation where like we are the leaders of this nation.
Yeah.
Don't mess with us.
Even if there's actually a king of Amador, the Children of the Light are the true power in Amador and in Amadicia in particular, where the Fortress of the Light is located. And they're also...
I have a question for both of you about this. And this is just a theory question, but how do you think the Children of the Light fund themselves? Do you think they just like tax people in Amador or what?
Oh, that's a really good question.
I mean, I feel like that kind of ties into a topic that we were going to be getting into a little bit later, where, you know, anybody they see as dark friends, they're probably going to take those people into custody and they're going to put them to the questioners, and we're just going to assume. I mean, where I'm at in the series, I assume they're probably not going to survive that process, and then they're just going to appropriate whatever it was that those dark those supposed dark friends owned.
Yeah. I would imagine that would be part of it because they don't really hold services. Like, I'm not really aware of there ever being like gatherings of people who worship the light together.
I almost wonder too if it's like a mafia type situation where you get like a group of them coming into one city.
You pay
and
for
being like,
our protection.
We're gonna rid all of your dark friends in your city. So feed us, give us things.
Huh.
Even if it's not money, maybe, but.
And I mean,
you know, like, or like for protection, like from the mob, like showing up at different businesses, like you need protection.
No,
kick in their window. You do now.
Protection.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there.
I think it's a really good question because most military, I shouldn't say military, most religious organizations have used things like tithing and donations and like what you were talking about where indulgences, I believe is what they were, that were sold by the Catholic Church. Yep. And I happen to really dig medieval history and the Reformation in particular because it is a fascinating snowball effect, in my opinion, from like the Reformation to the point that we live in now. And it's just an incredible time to sink into. We were talking about the Children of the Light, and then I started talking about something else. What was I talking about?
Their fortress, the Fortress of the Light. That damn fortress.
That damn fortress. But it is cool. It's just unfortunate that like they are the true powers in Amador, because then it kind of takes Amador off. Oh no, I'm sorry, Amadicia. It takes Amadicia off the playing field in a lot of ways because most rulers have kind of the same opinion of the Whitecloaks as everyone else does, and they don't really want to do anything to invite them into their borders unless they have to. So I don't know.
They're definitely not greeted with, bouquets of flowers, you know?
Come hang out with us. We love you. It'll be fun. No, it's never like that. Okay. And then the next section we have is rank, which is really important, as in any military organization, that you have a solid system of hierarchy and rank. So at the beginning of this series, the Lord Captain Commander of the Children was Pedron Niall, and he was widely respected as one of the 5 great generals of the time. Is that right? For Pedron?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Okay.
He's one of those characters I would have loved to get more chapters from.
Yeah.
Just because Tim, I don't know how many, I think you might not have really come to any points where you get any of the 5, but man, all of these guys are just wow. Yeah.
Have you come across
Very
this character
cool.
yet?
You know what? I'm going to be honest. I actually don't recall the name. There was one character in The Children of the Light that I did have begrudging respect for. I'm not exactly sure how to talk about it because I'm not sure if it spoils anything.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
But only because his subordinate was just, for lack of a better word, he was a douchebag. And the guy who was in charge of the encampment, that is what I've run across, was basically like, you know what, man? You can't go doing that to everybody all the time.
Yeah.
You are not the hammer. Everyone else isn't always a nail.
Right.
Now I want to know
But-
who it is. But anyway.
I can't remember.
Yeah,
I
we can
wish I
talk.
It's cool.
Maybe after the break.
Yeah,
After
yeah,
the break,
yeah.
we can bring it back up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, the Lord Captain Commander has a cool ring to it. Like, you're not a lord, you're not a captain, you're not a commander, you are all 3 rolled into one. And
That's true.
It's kind of like a cushy job. Like, you just sit back in the fortress and dictate, like, you go here, you do this, and you do that.
Did you write this or did I? They could have really benefited from a little rebranding. Why not the Stronghold of Sunshine? I'm so sick of typing the word light. Anyways, he gets to chill in the fortress and dictate to the rest of the garrisons where to go and what to do.
Yeah, everything is children of the light, the way of the light, like the light, the light, the light. Like, come on, guys. Could you really, like, just try a little bit? Like, it's a little bit one track here. You know?
The Fortress of the Light will forever be the Stronghold of Sunshine in my mind. If I ever name my mind palace, it will be the Stronghold of Sunshine. I love it.
And when you're that hated, like, why not make it like we have a sunny disposition?
Appealing.
Like,
Yeah.
try it. Try.
So much more inviting. I love that. So the next person after, and I kind of have a question mark after this because I would say technically the Lord Captain Commander is the dude when it comes to the Children of the Light. But the head Inquisitor of the Hand of the Light, oh, look, more light.
Yeah.
The Hand of Sunshine.
Yeah. Pockets full of sunshine.
For you and you and you.
You get some sunshine. You get some sunshine.
Yes.
Anyway, the head Inquisitor
Light,
of
light.
the Hand of the Light, Asunawa. Do you remember Asunawa's first name? Because I don't. I would say that Asunawa himself, although he holds the position of head Inquisitor, feels he is every bit the Lord Captain Commander's equal. So to put it bluntly, for Asunawa and the Hand of the Light, this is the torture department. Everybody is clamoring for this position.
Gross.
God, I hope not. So Asunawa is a torturer. All of the dudes that are part of the Hand of the Light, you do not want to get on their bad side. Like,
Yeah.
If
And
it-
the thing is, too, they're kind of like, we're confess to being a dark friend or we'll torture you. So even if you aren't a dark friend, you're just getting tortured and eventually you're going to break,
Yeah.
right? So they're like, we are super effective. We are great at our jobs. Pat on the back. Like, awful.
how was your torturing session today?
Right.
So the evolution of the order, the converting to combat. Amber, I think you wrote this out. And
Yeah, so it's basically just the question of how and why did the children of the light change so much through the ages from the time they start to where they end up, where we see them now in the series?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, they started off basically defending themselves from the shadow, which, that's a noble cause, right? And someone needs to do this. And it's kind of like how we have talked about the Red Aja tasking themselves, and it's not a good job. And
But someone has to do it.
We've talked about, like, okay, these people can be awful, but at the same time, some of the things that they needed to do was necessary. And at this time, there might not have been a better way to do it.
Yeah.
So despite the children of the light preaching the simple way of living and the idea that a powerful temptation like channeling will corrupt your soul, the children actually become victim to power and corruption. So as their armies get larger and larger and the numbers of the Aes Sedai in the White Tower grow smaller, they become more and more ambitious. And then in some cases, they are trying to take over some nations themselves. And of course, with Pedro Nile, like leading their armies, they've got a good chance at what they're doing. It's only until other nations start working together where they're like driving them back. It's a lot of power plays.
They really do not like Aes Sedai.
No,
Like, I think
they're yeah.
Well, you at this point have had a really good encounter that we probably can't talk about because I'm pretty sure it's past book 1, but maybe we can talk about that later. But yeah, the relationship between, like, they call them the Tarvalon witches all the time, which I think is kind of funny, and how that derogatory term of witch, it carries over so easily from the world we already live in,
Oh, yeah.
So you kind of already have an idea of what they're thinking by referring to them as witches, even though these women can literally do magic. So I don't know. I find that comparison interesting because it's such an easy one to make.
Again, you guys are clearly well past where I'm at in the series, but where I'm able to make connections, they had to have a start somewhere, and that start allowed them to gain enough power. And anytime you have an organization that gets a little bit of power, power begets more power. And when the organization lasts long enough, it starts to morph into we're just going to do whatever we can to get more power and more power. And eventually it's about it's not about what the organization started for. It's just about getting more influence and more power and control. It's really easy to make that comparison to, like, especially, the Catholic Church and witch hunts. And they're able, it seems like they're able to just blind themselves to the fact that Aes Sedai are just bad, period.
Right, because we say so.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Without getting into spoilers, we've seen them act certain ways towards all people that they believe to be dark friends. But it's not so much that they really think that everyone is a dark friend, because we'll get into it later. There are some characters, specifically, he flat out says he doesn't think that Aes Sedai are dark friends. He just simply hates them. And it's because of their power. And it's just like, okay, well, you've turned being a boy into a religion now. And they are pissed that the tower holds the influence that it does.
From where I'm looking, like, pretty much all God's children kind of don't like male casters or male power channelers.
Yeah. True.
And so, like, everybody hates them. And the only people who exist in any number at all who are channelers are women. But I would be willing to buy that there are going to be, especially dudes who exist in position of power, who see female channelers as just being not good, and it and it definitely negatively colors their thought patterns.
that's what makes this series so cool, is because every time there's, an objectionable character or group, there's another one that comes along where you're like, okay, I don't know who's worse, this person or this person, this group, that group. It gets twisted, and that's what makes things really fun.
Totally.
Yeah, the level of humanity that's involved is something that I've always really appreciated, because it's not just like men are evil because blah, blah, blah. It's anyone is evil. Anyone has the capacity for evil. It's not solely a male-driven trait. It's men and women. And really, even regardless of whether or not they are dark friends or not, they still have that capacity to be evil.
I thoroughly appreciate how gray everything is. Not everything, but a lot of the things in the series are gray.
That really goes along with the Children of the Light, because I think one of their, I don't want to say motto, but one of their ways of thinking is like, anyone has the capacity to turn back from the shadow. So,
But do they ever really give anyone an opportunity to do that?
No, not that I know of.
Like everyone deserves a second chance. Just kidding. Hang them all. That does not seem fair, but okay.
Well, it's, in the historical aspect, during witch hunts, if you're accused of being a witch, well, reach into this pot of boiling oil and pick up the rock in the bottom. And if if you die, well, you were probably cool. And if you don't die, we're going to kill you. So
right. Yeah.
Those are your options.
So that gives us a good history segue transition.
Yeah. Violent cults, fanatics, faith-driven communities. It's just, we've got it all here today. We've got real-world religious military orders that has happened throughout our time. And I firmly believe that Robert Jordan was very much interested in this type of thing. The Knights Templars are a big influence on the creation of the Children of the Light.
I don't know how you could miss it unless you don't know who the Knights Templar are. And being me, like even as a teenager when I read it, I was like, oh, I know exactly who this is kind of like taken from. Like, Tim, I would assume you made the same like instant.
Well,
did you?
To be honest, that was not a thought that crossed my mind until we kind of had the document, and I was like, oh God, how did I miss that? It was much more like the thing that leapt out to me was the Inquisition.
That's right.
That was what really I made the historical connection to almost right away.
Well, it's like a fusing of
really
these
is.
two things, really.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird how there's not a parallel to the Catholic Church that I have seen thus far in the series, but there are these two huge, terrible subgroups of Catholicism that are making enormous parallels in the series.
Absolutely.
It's kind of cool in that way.
Yeah, and I mean, I would even take it a step further and say, the Knights Templar or the Teutonic Order, just it's like glaring because of the outfits. So the first thing for me is the white robe, and then with the Knights Templar or the Teutonic Order, you had a cross over the heart. And instead, the Children of the Light have their sunburst.
The sunburst, yeah.
So I would say another thing that kind of sticks out is with this combination of religious and military way of life, there's a big army setting out to rid the world of these pesky heretics. But at the same time, you're putting your flag on more and more locations on the map. And this is very similar to what the Whitecloaks do or try.
It actually kind of makes me feel bad that I didn't make that connection right away.
don't feel bad.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, for me, I was a really unusual teenager, so I'm sure, the reason why the Knights Templar stood out to me is that I was probably reading something about it or had just seen something in my favorite teen girl magazine, National Geographic. My friends had like their favorite New Kids on the Block like posters hanging up on the walls, and I had the maps like all over my walls from the you know how National Geographic comes, they have those giant fold out maps. My walls were covered in those, and I was like, that's me. So yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why like it hit me really quickly. And I still have like a super fascination with military Christian organizations, especially the Templars and their roles in the Crusade and in banking throughout that section of the world for a while. Like they were an incredible influence for 2 centuries, I think.
One of the head chapters for the Teutonic Order is the next village over.
Really?
And if you want to see like a gorgeous building where you're like, yep, they had money, like look no further.
I'd buy that for $1.
Crazy.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So for me, like when I was thinking about the Knights Templar and what like comes off of their outfit for me, it's the conical style helmets. Like that was just like, like that's, to me, that finishes the ensemble.
Yeah, those are iconic. They are so big and weird looking.
Yeah.
It's just like
and I mean, doesn't it look like if somebody hit you on the top of
it would push down onto your...
I mean, maybe that's like your airbag. I don't know.
Yeah.
And to think though, if someone like hit that and it caved in, like that would just smash your brain.
Right. Yeah. So
we were talking about King Henry the other week, and the same thing. Like, yep, your head's smashed now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good luck with that.
That was one of the things that stood out to me about them. And then, like I said, I prepare for everything with documentaries. Everything. All the documentaries all the time. Anyway, there was one thing that one of the presenters in the show that I watched said, and he said they hid behind their own myth for much of their career. And I was like, oh, that sounds just like the Whitecloaks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great line.
Thank you. And it felt so accurate, both for like the Knights Templar, but also for the Whitecloaks, because when we were talking about the idea of power, one of the things that came to mind was how in the Westlands, there are mixed feelings about Aes Sedai. But for the most part, people are really leery of their presence, but they can't refute it because everybody agrees, and the White Tower has the power. You don't want to make them an enemy. You don't want to make them an enemy. So they will absolutely be welcome at pretty much anything a monarch is doing, whereas with the
Kings
White
and
Cloaks,
queens will bend to the White Tower.
Yeah, but with Whitecloaks, they have to kind of like push for their presentation. So I can see where that would create a lot of resentment, especially over time, where you want power, you've had that taste of power, and these women, because you don't really represent a country, you're just some highly militarized religious fanatic group, you know?
Yeah.
So I find that idea of power and the power dynamic, and really how that played out for the Knights Templar too. I just thought I thought that was interesting. So now let's talk about torture.
Yeah.
Yay!
Torture.
So I have to laugh because, again, documentaries. And I love watching documentaries with Aiden. Like, both of you guys know Aiden, so you know what it's like to participate in things with Aiden. And one of the things that they were talking about were torture methods used during the Spanish Inquisition. And the narrator said something about how they would rub pig fat on the feet of the person being tortured and then apply heat, so fire underneath, until their bones fell off of their body. So way past like just searing the outside of their flesh, but just keeping it. I mean, not to be too graphic or anything, but I'm totally going to go there. I think I think about like
I can't even pay attention to what you're talking about right now because my mind is like stuck with that mental image.
right, it's so awful. So because that's through skin, that's through cartilage, that's through your flesh. Like how awful is that?
What the Whitecloaks' preferred method of torture was? I think I read something about flaying, like peeling the skin off.
God, no. I feel as though there's always this insinuation of torture. Like we don't really get too nitty gritty into what people are doing when they are being tortured. I mean,
There is one point. Oh, I can't talk about it though. It's bad.
Oh, I look forward to that.
yeah.
It's short though. It's not. They don't go too much into detail, but they let you know what happened.
Yeah. So the Hand of the Light is bad news. And I feel as though you had been struck by the Spanish Inquisition, right, Tim? Like the connection between that and the Hand of the Light. Was there anything in particular for you that like pulled you into thinking about that?
I've only dealt with, in where I've read thus far, with the military organization, but they lean so heavily on, well, you don't want to go talk to the questioners now, do ya? And it's like, oh, that's what that means. That means torture. Like, and, you know, I'm also, like, not as in-depth as you, perhaps, but a definite history, psychotic history nerd.
I love that about you.
And I've become familiar with a lot of the terrible things that people have done to each other. And and I appreciate how just the allusion to these people whose job is literally to just torture you. Oh, God.
Like an entire force dedicated to nothing but that. And it is very Spanish Inquisition, because like that happened. And those two things, the Spanish Inquisition and the Knights Templar, they happen roughly 2 centuries apart from each other as well. So like the Knights Templar disbanded in the early 14th century, and the Spanish
after the Crusades, like they're like, what do we do? We're just standing around like
yeah, and I feel like there was some sort of like this weird like round up execution of the Templars, like they were accused of heresy. Is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah, so like stranger than fiction, they have this incredible downfall, and suddenly this really powerful organization just doesn't even exist anymore, other than as a note in history. But like the Spanish Inquisition comes later, and the world is in a different place because it's in response to heretical thought. So he takes the idea of the super religious military group and marries it to the fanatical torturing group and just puts them together, and it's like, that's gonna be bad. That's all they do. That's their whole responsibility, is to find and enforce what the children of the light think is the right path for everyone. And it's terrifying because they make that definition. They decide.
I am not 100%. I don't remember what I learned about the Spanish Inquisition in school. The only thing I do remember about it was their obsession with witches. Like, you're a witch, you're a witch, you're probably a witch. And this is the Whitecloaks. They're like these Tarvalin witches. And it's like, okay, like, yeah, there it is.
The slur remains the same. Like, and the fear remains the same. The fear of a power that they don't understand. Because, like, while the witch hunts, heresy trials mostly rounded up women for witches, there were men who were rounded up in that as well. And I think that gets glossed over a lot. We automatically assume that it was just a bunch of women. Sometimes it was just a bunch of everyone, you know, like, especially in certain areas, it was just really bad. And the same thing, like in Amadicia or Amador, the city itself, that's going to be the biggest stronghold. That's where everybody's going to behave a certain way. But anywhere outside of there where the children of the light don't have oversight, they kind of have to like walk lightly a little bit. And I mean, we see that kind of
You don't want to
conflict.
piss off the White Tower. You don't want to piss off the Whitecloaks.
You don't want to piss off the ruler of
navigate?
Andor. I feel like this one is about power and fanaticism. And
Pretty funny how the Whitecloaks were started in response to civil wars while in the books now, just their existence has potential to create
one.
civil war.
Yeah, good point.
Lord.
Good point. I think that's all we had for our notes. But Tim, I wanted to ask you: Do you have anything like as a first-time reader that you would want to know about the Whitecloaks, or kind of wish you had known about the Whitecloaks? I'm always curious.
That's a really great question, but
Thank you.
I have a kind of a piss poor answer for you.
That's okay.
To be perfectly honest, I don't.
Yep.
I get just really terrible vibes from them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I do find it really interesting to learn some of the origins of them. It'd be nice if that showed up, if it was talked about a little earlier, where it wasn't always just a super nasty, terrible organization.
Okay.
But
Ooh.
Yeah.
just because I like the grayness, I like the fact that nothing in life is completely black and white.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there are people within the Children of the Light that aren't bad people.
Oh, absolutely.
They just got swept up, and maybe that was like their only option. Like, well, shit, I can't. My brother owns the farm, and you know my dad's dead, so I guess I'll join this group.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, they'll feed me.
Yeah.
Which is another parallel to the Knights Templar, which happened really in a lot of ways, the Knights Templar, the Crusades, everything that like came out of it was a grab for land. I mean, as it so often is, land and resources. That's what we want. So,
and with the Crusades, it was like these people that don't believe our religion, like we don't want them getting any closer to us, and this boundary has to be made.
Enforced.
Maybe we want a little bit more land for ourselves. So.
That is kind of a fascinating thing about. It's almost like you could look at the Knights Templar, especially during the Crusades, as being the equivalent of like Viking pirates, where part of what they're doing is going out and getting more resources for themselves.
Yeah.
And that it would. I look forward to trying to piece together that history and see if I can figure out like how it is that they became powerful enough to start getting, at least they got some land, clearly, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of my thoughts on what I'd like to have seen earlier on, but, you know,
Okay.
I'll take it as it
I
comes.
have a question for you. Tracy has told you that there's a TV show coming out, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything from the show that you think like needs to be made like a point, like something you would look forward to seeing?
In the Whitecloaks in particular?
Yeah. In the Whitecloaks, like visually or
that's a good
storyline
question.
wise.
You know, I actually don't have anything specific to the Whitecloaks.
Okay.
I was kind of, I don't know if this actually pertains to this discussion, but I was thinking about it on my drive here this morning. I would want to think about it as Robert Jordan was a gleeman.
Oh, that's such a good.
And
that's
whoever
so good.
I love that.
whoever produces this TV show is just a different gleeman telling the story in their own way. Like, does that make sense?
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
Because, like, I wouldn't expect, I'd expect Tom, God, what's his last
Marilyn?
name? Yeah.
Marilyn.
I would expect Tom Maryland to tell a story in a slightly different way.
Tom gets all the love, all the love. Sorry, I love Tom. Go ahead.
He's one of my favorite characters so far.
When you said that, I was like all heart-eyed emoji responding to you.
I've heard people say like, oh, like I could do without him, and I'm like, what?
No,
Shut your
he's
damn
so
mouth.
good. He's so good.
He's so good. Okay, go ahead.
Agreed.
I love that. Does that mean we're
It's good.
gleaming too? Do I need a harp? A harp and a frying pan?
We're all you know what? We are all gleaming.
Oh, I love this
Word.
idea. That's so
Okay.
cool.
So I think we will take our quick break.
Tim,
Tim,
Mwah.
thank you so much. It was great. And we're definitely going to have to do this again.